Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 55, an agency's perspective on estimating, pre-qualifying methodology, when to charge a fee. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello again. How are you doing? I'm doing a solo without a hat today. Thought I'd be different. It's a more serious topic, so maybe I should be more serious, more professional. I didn't wear my tie, though. I had my tie days. I worked in an office decades ago. Insurance. I was an insurance guy. I was an insurance agent. And several years I worked in office environments and would go to work in a tie every day. So, and I had some sales jobs probably and other things that I had to wear a tie with or for. So I've worn ties in the past. But, you know, one of the great things about working for yourself, especially in the tech arena, is you can be a little more casual. And this is more Matt. I'm a casual, just throw whatever on in the morning kind of guy. I try to wear, a nice shirt for these or anytime I'm recording. But many days in between, I'm just like, oh, whatever I grab. So luckily, I have a wife that's really good with color coordination. It took me years. But I'm much better today because I remember years ago, she used to make me turn around and go back and put something else on. And, considering that I was an artist in a previous life and that I do web design, and I think I'm pretty decent at color, for some reason, I don't care as much about my clothes. And, I got my jeans on and a t-shirt, I'm good to go. But, yeah. Like I said, well, maybe I've just gotten better with color over the years, so that's why I don't hear that very often from her anymore. It's good to have people in your life like that, so they make sure when you leave the house that you don't look like a fool. Anyway, what is the topic today? Well, we're going to talk about kind of invoicing, estimates, proposals, and the reason I chose this topic today is because somebody in my circle of people said that would be a great topic. They were interested in that topic and would like to know what I do or what I recommend. And it's more related to, do I charge prospects or potential clients or prospects or somebody that's asking for an estimate or proposal? Do I charge them for that estimate or proposal for the time I'm going to spend on that? Because unfortunately, that is in this business, running an agency specifically, or if you have clients and you need to invoice people, you need to estimate things. And it goes for other, like I was in the contracting business for a number of years, painting, repair, remodeling. So I had to do estimating. I had to estimate projects. So I'm doing the same thing, just in an agency environment now. But it's part of doing business. And so how that's structured is a little case by case. We're going to get into it today, but I'll kind of tell you how I do it and how I look at it. And then you can take pieces of that and apply it to what you're doing. Maybe there's a good nugget here or there. And you're like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. Maybe I should do it that way. Or maybe I'm too worried about it. A lot of times we worry about a lot of things that we don't need to worry about. Just relax. Just do what you need to do. Okay. So estimating, it is, like I said, it's an important part of our day-to-day or week-to-week. Our volume in my agency isn't super high. I'm not getting requests for estimates every day at this stage anyway. So I'm doing estimates on a continuous basis, but maybe more on a weekly basis. I'll go through time frames where I'm not estimating. I have a lot of clients that we have contracts. So we have monthly contracts or larger projects that we do that just need estimated one time. So I got this, the way I'm kind of designed and the way I am right now, estimating is actually not a huge part of my time. So having said that, when I do estimate something, it still costs time, right? There's still an investment of time. So there are things to consider there where you're not going down rabbit holes that take you away from your other more important things, taking care of clients and projects and team and all that. I have certainly done that. I've had this agency for 3 years. I've done estimating before that, and in that 3 years, though, there have been a few instances where I've had to spend a lot more time on things, on estimating something that you would upfront think, So there's things you got to do upfront to kind of assess the scope of what you're getting into. A lot of that has to do with the size and complexity. How I do this, it's the same for, and how I got things structured in my agency. I kind of treat agencies and direct clients. So direct client can be somebody like a direct business that I'm helping we manage, or agency partners that we're doing estimating for them, helping them deliver web design development services to their clients. I estimate the same way. The pricing may be tweaked, maybe discounted in certain circumstances or whatever. But for the most part, I go through the same exact process of collecting and discovery and working with that agency or that client to get all the information I need to do the estimate, and I deliver that estimate in the same exact way. The difference with a partner with another agency, let's say a digital marketing agency that we're working with, is they may take my estimate and bake that into their own estimate, or make changes, rebrand it, or just include it, or whatever. They do. It don't matter. See, from my perspective, with a partner, whatever they do, they do. As long as I'm taking care of, all I care about is on this side of things. I'm going to obviously, well, it's their brand, right? So they have to hopefully be good enough to protect their own brand and do things in a professional way. But from my end, I'm delivering the service to that agency, not necessarily to the client, although I may interface with their client a little bit. But for the most part, I'm estimating like anything, and they can take and do what they want with it. The software I've been using for 3 years now, almost 3 years probably, is FreshBooks. And I started using FreshBooks because I was listening to a tech podcast. Sorry about that. Life in the city. I was listening to a tech podcast, and that was one of their sponsors. And so I tried them out, checked them out, and I've been with them ever since. They're not perfect, but it's easy to create estimates and proposals. Estimates and proposals can be different. Estimates are simpler, little quick things they send out. Proposals might include a contract. And the contract I create is something I created in-house here. That includes all the important things, the wording and contracts, that we're protected in some way, in some regard. And it can include an attachments, usually a PDF that explains things for us. But with FreshBooks, you can also track projects in time. So there's a time tracker in there, so that's useful sometimes for me if I am doing an hourly thing here and there, although most stuff I don't do is hourly, but I do some hourly stuff in between and track that, or my team. You can track expenses in there. They have a dashboard and stuff, so you can kind of see your profits on a month-to-month, quarterly basis, all that stuff. I actually use a different system for my accounting for the most part, but I do import stuff in there just so I can see graphs and different things. So that's not, it is a decent dashboard. One of the biggest downsides with it, though, is that doesn't have a good templating system. So, in other words, like I can't create like a template for a contract and just drop it in. I have to have that somewhere else and copy and paste it in, or I have to you can copy a past invoice. And so the templates, like I feel like there should be a better templating system. And I think I've worked with other software in the past that did have decent templates, where you can have templates for different types of projects or whatever. But we make do. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it's been great. It's got great options for billing. So we can have somebody bill credit cards, use credit cards, or they can use PayPal, one or the other. But they can use credit cards. They can use ACH, which is really good because it's lower fees. ACH is checking, some direct withdrawal or deposits. And then, yeah, I mean, and something they added this past year, which I've already taken full advantage of, is now you can do reoccurring. So I have monthly contracts now on reoccurring that every month they just rebill, which is really, really nice. So, yeah, it's got a lot of great things. Check out FreshBooks. I'm not I might be an affiliate, but if you want to ask for an affiliate link, go ahead. I'm not too worried about it. I think I might even on my blog I might have a blog post about FreshBooks or mentions FreshBooks. There's an affiliate link in there. So, yeah. So, in terms of, and back to kind of estimates and proposals, like, again, estimates are very simple. So, it's a very just quick thing I'm going to do for somebody. It doesn't require a huge, like a contract and worrying about stuff. Maybe it's something about already working with this client and we kind of have an overall, maybe we even have a monthly contract or something, and but it's something kind of an add-on, something else we're doing. This is a quick way to estimate things, to send an estimate out. And again, you can attach PDF, and usually a PDF will include, what you're including in that project, but also what you're excluding, which is really, really important. Setting limits on things. How many iterations are you going to allow? How many, what aren't you going to do? Like, we're not going to do copywriting, and most of the time we're not going to provide these types of assets or whatever. We're not going to provide hosting, although we'll recommend a host. We'll help you set up the host, and we'll help you manage your server, but we're not going to include it. So, yeah, those things, all those details are in there. Now, the big thing here, and what was actually what was brought up to me and requested was, do I charge for estimating? So let's dig into that a little bit. So there are probably agencies out there, freelancers or whatever, that charge some kind of fee or something to do estimating. I just absorb my basic estimating. So we're going to kind of categorize it probably somehow. Basic estimating is kind of built into the cost of doing business for me. I don't charge for every estimate, especially if for client like partners and whatever, or existing clients. Maybe that's a thing too for new business, but most estimates take 30 minutes. It could take, depending on what it is, it's going to take 30 minutes. It's going to take 3 hours. I don't know, somewhere in there, right? A couple hours to do an estimate for me is part of doing business. Even if I hire somebody full-time someday and all they do is estimating, we'd probably be making more money. So that's probably going to be built into what we're doing, right? I could imagine having somebody that's helping me or dedicated to also doing estimates if we're getting a lot of them. It kind of, in all of this, understand, depends on the type of work you're doing and the complexity of work. And we'll get into that a little bit, where that may change. In the future, if I'm getting a lot of requests in the future, if I got a continuous stream of estimates coming in, that may require a fee. And the reason why I would think about that is because that's a good way to kind of filter out the tire kickers and the people that are semi-interested or shopping around. We want to estimate people that are actually serious about actually getting the work done. So they're going to put some money up front. So that could be a thing in the future that I would implement, something like that. But yeah, one of the things that helps me probably a lot before I do a full out estimate, I try to do a 15-minute intro call or like a little consult for 15 minutes. In a 15-minute, it doesn't sound like a lot of time, but in a 15-minute call, if you sit down with somebody and you know what you're doing, you understand your domain, you know what you're doing, you should be able to quickly assess the scope of this project. And then within that conversation, you can talk pricing. And that is going to eliminate people right out of the gates, or they're going to want to inquire more. And then that's really important up front. So it's important up front for me before I get into a major, like especially a larger estimate. I'm going to know up front if this person is going to be the right client for us, the right price point. There's a lot of things I don't do without it being several $1,000s. So if I say this project, the average project or our base cost is going to be probably $4,000 for this. If I say that on a 15-minute call, if they don't have that budget, that's the end of it. And they go off and they find somebody that can do it for cheaper. So you got to know your price points and where you're at and bringing that up early in the conversation. I think that's important. You have to know that, there's a lot of agencies, they will charge 10, 20, 30,000, 40,000 for a website. It depends on the type of website, right? But knowing that up front, I'm not the guy you're going to come to or a client's going to come to for a $300 website design and development. Right? I'm not that guy. So right out of the gates, if you're thinking that today, it's time for you to go somewhere else. But that's important, right? So that right out of the gate already eliminates time, because I'm not going to waste a lot of time with somebody that has a really, really low budget or can't afford us, right? To begin with. So yeah. So that call is important. Even if it's a ballpark, that's a thing too, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. One of the things that I did really early on in my agency was kind of productize our services as well. So there's a lot of projects that I can bid on, I can estimate, propose without spending a lot of time. It saves me a lot of time because I have packages. So when you create packages of services, so let's say you're doing a full web design development of a website or whatever your service is, right? Copyright services, whatever it is. You know what you can include in there. And you can, like I said, when I send a proposal out, and for a package like this, it's going to have inclusions and exclusions. It's going to have limits to certain things. We'll do 3 to 5 pages or whatever. We'll spend X number of hours, whatever it is. And it's a package. So a package, like I said, let's say it's 3 to 5, whatever, 5 to 10 pages, right? A 5 to 10 page website. Well, it might end up only being a 2-page website, but that's the package. It's up to 10. If you only have 2, you're going to do 2. So that's a really good way to save yourself time. is to have those package services. And then if there's things we call add-ons. So let's say it was a web design development project, full web design, full web development, WordPress theme, custom WordPress theme. Here's the price. Oh, you need WooCommerce. Okay, here's the additional price for WooCommerce. Oh, you have 500 products we need to add to your site. Here's that. So there's some custom feature that we need to build. We'll add that on. But we have our base cost and our base package. So that saves a ton of time. Okay. And ballparks are a way to save time too. So this happens a lot with like agency partners, where they'll come to me and say, Matt, we got this new client. They have this website. They send me a link maybe to the website. They need this done. Can you give me a ballpark? And sometimes right there, without even sending them an estimate, I'll say probably, let's say, $3,000 to $4,000. But the ballparks are different. It's not an official estimate. A ballpark is when we get more information, we've done more discovery. If they decide that, okay, that ballpark's okay, now let's explore it further. That $3,000 to $4,000 could turn into $8,000 or $1,500. It's going to be, but it's a starting point, right? So that will gauge interest. It's a starting point. So ballparks are another really good tool to save you time, and it saves your partner's time or your potential prospects, whatever. It saves them time because now they know, and that's what on the 15-minute call, that's what you're essentially doing. You say, well, a package like this typically costs $4,000. And then you're going to know by their reaction. And sometimes I will, and depending on what that reaction is, I will calm them down a little bit. Say, well, let's look at the project. If I think they're maybe $4,000, but maybe it's not a $300. Maybe we could whittle a little bit off of that. Certainly, we can discount in certain circumstances and stuff like that, right? If I want that client, or if I see there's an opening where we could do less work, or you can negotiate what you do. So maybe we were going to do this much stuff, okay. But if you can't afford that much stuff, maybe we can do just this, and we're not going to do this stuff up here, but we can do it for a little cheaper. But so you just throw that out as a starting point. Certainly, you can still be flexible. It's up to you. But when things get more custom, though, and there's a lot of unknowns, it can get trickier, right? So what I just talked about with productizing services, that's a great starting point. But when you get on a call with somebody, you start learning about a project and you realize there's a lot of customization needed, or like we're going to build like generally speaking, our design development projects are creating custom themes. If we use our in-house boilerplate or framework, but they may need some completely different feature that requires maybe API or something work. To work with an outside service, a Google service or whatever, a map, a special, really unique custom map or whatever. Those are the type of things where we may have to do more exploration. It may not be a lot more exploration. So again, it's like scope. If it's within that couple hours, maybe we just do it. However, like I said, there's things that do have a lot more scope. Even maintenance audits. Okay, so a couple things I'll do. So let's look at the different scenarios where I would actually start charging up front. So there are scenarios, even though I just said we include this, we include a basic, simple, productized, all that stuff. There are scenarios where I have charged or will charge up front for an estimate. Maintenance is a big scenario here. So when we are presented with a new website or a family of websites or whatever it is for a client, we may be able to assess relatively quickly what we're getting into. We'll ask for, maybe we'll ask for the login to the WordPress site or FTP if we can get it. Something so we can look at the code base, are there all their plugins? They have 90 plugins and they're all 5 years out of date. That's going to change things a little bit, right? So I can do that initial assessment. Sometimes I do that. I've done that where I'll do an initial assessment. I see some red flags. And then I tell them that I will need to do more work on this. I need to dig further. But it's going to cost you X price. Okay, so that's where I call them audits. You can call them whatever you want. But basically a website audit. And I guess an audit is going to be different for everybody. So if you're doing marketing, you're going to do a different kind of audit. If we're just doing design and development or maintaining a site, we need to do an audit we need to understand the architecture, what the history of that site is, how well maintained it's been, what type of server it's on, all those things. So we'll do that, and I'll throw out a price for that audit. What you charge for that has to be right for you. It could be, let's say you charge $300, maybe you charge $1,000 for an audit like that. So again, but it also depends on the size. And so those are, for me, I guess up until now, they've been a little more custom. Like I'll look at it and say, this is going to take me X number of hours at least. It's going to take me an afternoon, at least this. And so you have to know kind of your hourly value, just like a consultant does, right? Whether you're a $300 an hour guy or gal or person, whatever, or if you're just the $50, whatever, wherever you are. And that may depend on where you are in the development of your business. So that's one thing. Otherwise, the same thing kind of goes for like large custom features, larger sites, more complex projects where you're going to have to invest a lot of time. Yes, I don't like doing things like that for free. That's not a cost of doing business. It's an additional, just like consulting, it's an additional service. You're providing a service because you could do all that work and they could just take all of that input and then go with a different developer for cheaper, right? So you don't want to do all that work for free and then they can do whatever. They just learned all kinds of stuff. You did a great job for them and you just did it for free. You don't want that to happen. There's always risk, that probably happens with regular estimates sometimes, but yeah. So some of this really is consulting. So you may need to turn that into a consulting service at some point if you need to work with that client on a longer term basis to even figure out what you're going to do for them. So and again, you may, depending on who you are, how your business is structured, what you want to do, how your agency is structured, you have to decide if consulting is a thing for you. But I don't know. Yeah. So a lot of this is case by case. But the bottom line with all of this, okay, the bottom line is you have to establish what works for you, right? You could use my model. So what is my model? My model is, generally speaking, I don't think about charging for estimates or proposals. If they're going to take that smaller time frame, 30 minutes, a couple hours, okay, I'm going to take the time. But I'm not doing it. I'm not getting 10 estimates a day, okay? So I'm able to do that. If I got to a higher volume and it started to impact other things I'm doing, and I can't hire somebody to help me or whatever, and it doesn't make sense financially, then yes, then I'm going to have to start thinking about how can I pre-qualify those estimates. Pre-qualify that person, that they're actually serious, and that, and so then that's maybe when you charge a small fee to even get in the door. And as your reputation grows, I would hope as my reputation grows, and you become more popular, more people will be willing to pay that fee. You know, you have to establish your authority, and you have to establish people are going to have to trust you in some way. You got to establish trust in the marketplace for someone to give you money up front. So, and maybe that, you know, that's probably going to be easier if it's a referral or, you know, through networking or whatever. Regardless, though. So, okay, so let's go back to my model. I'm jumping all over the place. So my model, you know, that, then if it becomes more complex, it may, or there's a lot of unknowns, and I need to do a lot more groundwork, legwork, talking, investigating, diving into code, all that stuff, I'm going to charge a fee of some kind. And that becomes, that's sort of, it's not, that's just another service you're providing. So then you probably could think of that as another service, right? So you could say, if you did no other like in our case, like building websites, if we built no websites, so all we did was do estimates and do audits of sites. You could just do audits of sites, and they could take that and go wherever with that. So that just becomes another service that you're a productized service. You could, I mean, you can establish pricing and what you're going to do within that context, and that's just another thing that you do for people. And so you do that, and then, okay, great, it sounds good. We now sell you this other service to actually build it or do whatever we're going to do with it. Again, and I talk about all this in the context of web design development because that's what we do around here. But this can easily be applied to whether you're a copywriter, doing marketing, digital marketing, anything like that. Anything that requires you doing estimating and stuff like that. So, but the bottom line, you know, so that's, it can be free. It depends on the complexity. It depends on how much you're willing to absorb. Depends on you. But that's kind of explained how I manage those things. And if you, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you, to the individual, to the agency, to whoever is doing this estimating and proposing. It depends on your monetary situation and what you can absorb and the level of things that, like I said, you know, there's not a one size fits all answer here. Again, if my volume goes up and I suddenly, for whatever reason, become super popular overnight and I'm getting inundated, I'm going to have to figure out how to pre-qualify those, like I said, and manage that or hire somebody to help me or whatever. Because I can't, I only have so many hours in the day and I'm already pretty busy, right? So I'd have to figure that out. Right now, the way I'm doing things is working fine. It's okay. The volume of stuff that we get. But it can't put you out of business, right? So if you're spending all your time doing proposals and estimates, you're not going to be able to get any work done, especially if you're a small shop. You know, you have to still do whatever you do for the other services. So if it starts impacting you being able to deliver your normal services, yeah, you're going to have to do something. That's it. I mean, and I don't know what else I can add to that. You know, it's like anything you're doing in your business. It comes down to understanding your cash flow, your ability, your time, what you can spend on things, and what is your time worth. Can you take, I mean, I like my model where I don't have to stress about it. It doesn't, at this point, and I don't have to worry about doing small estimates, quick estimates for people and stuff. And having everything productized helps a lot, all the things we talked about. But regardless, it can't put you out of business. You know, so maybe that's do what you need to do. That's not very helpful, is it? Do what you need to do. You're gonna have to just figure it out on your own. But no, hopefully what I talked about here gave you some ideas, and it makes some kind of sense for what you're doing. Maybe you're already doing these things. It just confirms you're doing the right stuff. But again, it's every agency is different. Every person's different. Every business is different on some level. There's no necessarily there's not necessarily, maybe I'll just be done now. There's not necessarily one way of doing things. You got to do what's right for you. That's it. That's all for this episode. Until next time, keep at it, Builders Crew. You got this. Okay, so I'm actually recording this part separately from the original recording because there's something that I thought of after recording that I thought would be useful. And it's just an idea. And that idea is around pre-qualifying prospects, right? And you do this in other industries. Like I think I said earlier in the episode that when I was in insurance, I worked for a full insurance agency, full service insurance agency for years as an agent, as a partner. But there was a chunk of time for a couple of years that I was focused heavily on life insurance, and we would get leads, a lot of leads every week, but there was ways we could pre-qualify them. And that's a whole other story. But the reason I came back to record this snippet is I was talking about pre-qualifying through providing a fee, because that's going to eliminate it's an extra thing they have to do, and they have to commit some money in order to get the estimate or proposal. And that's going to filter out the people that aren't really that serious. It'll tell you where they are in the buying. What is the word I'm thinking of right now? in the buyer's journey, in their journey. I'm just not thinking. My brain is not 100% today. I think I need more coffee or something. So you will figure out where they are in that process, in that buying process, whether they're serious about actually closing a sale or buying something, if you can even close it, if they're very early, they're kind of wishy-washy. They're just trying to get some estimates so they can get an idea, or if they're going to just do them themselves, whatever, right? So it just gives you a little higher quality person you're working with. But there's another thing that you can do. So the other thing you can do is we did, in the insurance industry is we would, like that call I talked about, that's another way you're pre-qualifying that person if you're even going to spend time putting a full proposal together. So that 15 minutes is another tool that I use along with my Productize Services to be able to filter out the people that they're not a good fit for us. And that's the goal of that 15-minute call. Are they a good fit for our agency and what we're selling? And not everybody is. I mean, if you think you're going to service everybody in the world, you're wrong. You have you define who you're going to service, what your vertical is, but also like what type of client. Like, are you going to focus on the cheapos that just, want a site done for $100? Or are you going to have a higher price point and focus on larger sites, larger businesses, whatever. But you pre-qualify that in that call. Another way would be, and this is what, again, big reason that I wanted to record this. I'm like, you can use other tools. You can pre-qualify them through just an email, ask them some questions in the email. Or maybe everybody that applies for an estimate has to go through a certain process. And that process includes a form that asks them certain questions that are key to assessing if this is the right project for you or for them. And then you can reject it or accept it and go further. So in the beginning, I think a way, if leads scale and you're getting a lot of them, that's one way you can save a lot of time, is by doing that pre-qualification in the beginning. Okay, back to the show, wherever I slotted this. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again,
Please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this podcast or provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, Unified Web Design. That's my agency. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you're interested in our services or looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.